Hi, I'm Mike Marin, and in this video, we'll talk about getting started working with data in R. We will read in a dataset called LungCap data. This is a tab-delimited text file. We can use the read.table command to import data into R. There are many other ways of getting data into R. We're just going to discuss a few here. You can access the help menu by typing help and in brackets the name of the command you'd like help for, or by placing a question mark in front of the command name. We'll go ahead and read the data into R and save it in an object called data1. Here we'll use the read.table command. The first thing to specify is the file. We must specify the path to the file in quotations. I've already found the path to my file and copied it, so I'm just going to go ahead and paste it in here. The next argument is the header argument. Here we can set this to true, letting R know that the first row of our data is headers or the variable names. The last argument we should worry about is the sep argument. This lets R know how our observations separated. Our file is tab delimited, so we'll use a /t to let R know this is tab delimited data. If instead our data were comma separated, we could either insert a comma here, or we could use the read.csv command. If observations are separated by white space, we can just leave this blank. I'm going to go ahead and put the /t back in there as our data is tab delimited. Once we enter this, we can see in the workspace we now have this object data1, which contains 725 observations on 6 variables. A second option, which is a little bit easier and doesn't involve specifying the path to the file, is to use the file.choose command within the read.table command. Let's go ahead and read the data into R again, and we'll save it in an object called data2. Here we're going to again use the read.table command. Specifying the file, we can type file.choose and end that with open and close parentheses. Next, we can set the header argument equal to true, letting R know the first row of our data are headers or variable names. And finally, we can set the sep argument equal to /t, again letting R know this is a tab delimited file. Now R gives us this drop-down menu where we can select the file. I have this file saved on my desktop in a folder called rvideos, and the file is saved right here, lungcapdata.txt. Once I select this, we can now see in R's workspace this object data2. Again, 725 observations on 6 variables. We'll talk about one more even simpler option to getting data into R, and this can only be done if you're working with RStudio, not just R itself. Here we can use the Import Dataset menu. When we select this, we see we have two options to import data from a text file or from the web. We'll select to import data from a text file. Again, we get the drop-down menu. The data is stored on my desktop in this rvideos file and saved as lungcap data. Once we select this, we'll see R gives us one more drop-down menu. Here we can specify the name of the object we would like to save the data in. Previously we saved it as data1 or data2. Here I'll save it as lungcap data. The next option is to specify whether or not there is a header used. Here we'll select yes, letting R know the first row of the data are headers or variable names. The next option is to let R know how the data is separated. Ours is tab delimited. We can see other options of semicolon, a comma, or white space. The third option is to let R know which character will specify a decimal point. Here we use periods for decimal points. In Europe, it's common to have a comma representing a decimal point. The final option is to let R know what to do with categorical variables or character strings. Here we'll have R place double quotes around character strings instead of single quote or no quotations. Now that we've specified all the options, we can go ahead and import the data. We can now see this third object in R, LungCap data. Again, 725 observations on 6 variables. We can also see up here the data showing in RStudio's data view. We can scroll through the entire set of data if we like. It's worth noting here that reading data into R can be painful at first, so go ahead and use what you know. I personally find it easiest to work with Excel and save the data in a format I'm more familiar with there. For example, I usually prefer to get the data organized in Excel and then save it as a tab-delimited text file. We now have the data saved in 3 separate objects in R. Let's remove the data1 and data2 objects using the rm command that we learned earlier. Here we'd like to remove the object data1 from the workspace, as well as remove the object data2 from the workspace. We did this simply for the sake of cleanliness and being a bit more organized. Now, we'd like to make sure we've got the data into RStudio as it should be. We can take a look at the data viewer as we just did, or we can use some commands in R to check this. The first command we might want to use is the dim command. This will let us know the dimensions of the data in R, that is, the number of rows and number of columns. Here we'd like to know the dimensions for this object LungCap data. We can see it has 725 rows, 6 columns. To view a portion of the data, we can use the head command, asking R to see the first 6 rows of this object LungCap data. Or we can use the tail command to see the last 6 rows of this object LungCap data. We'll work with this LungCap data through most of the videos in this series. We can see our outcome variable is LungCap, a measure of lung capacity, and we have 5 explanatory variables. We would like to relate lung capacity to the age of the child, the height of the child, whether or not they identify as a smoker, their gender, and whether or not they were born via cesarean. Another way we can check to make sure the data was read into R as it should be is to use the square brackets to subset the data as we learned in the last video. We can look at the LungCap data and here ask for rows 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and leave this blank specifying all columns. We've also learned in the last video that we can use the colon to create a sequence, rows 5 up to 9, and again leaving this blank selecting all columns. And again, just to remind ourselves of one more thing we learned in previous videos, we can look at LungCap data, creating a sequence running from 4 up to 722, and throwing a negative sign in front of this is going to give us all rows except rows 4 up to 722. And again, we'll leave this blank specifying we'd like all columns. We can check the variable names using the names command in R. Here we would like the names of the variables for LungCap data. In the next video in this series, we'll continue on from here and discuss checking variables in R. Thanks for watching this video, and make sure to check out my other instructional videos.